You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1289. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. We want you to have that side of thriving. We want the operations, the marketing, the networking, all that going well. We want it to be stress-free or as little stress as we can make in the practice. And we want you to love it. We want you to see the clients you want to see. We want to help you in as many ways as possible to be just amazed at the business that you've been able to create. I started mental wellness counseling first as a 1099, so filed the LLC early on. That would have been, I think, 2006. And did that as just a side gig while I was working for community mental health, and would go a couple nights a week and just see a handful of clients, and was private pay the whole time just because I was too early in my licensure to get on insurance panels. You had to be 2 years full license, and I was not 2 years full license at the time. So I couldn't get on insurance panels, so I was just private pay. And then when I moved to Traverse City, I started the practice up here and was doing it as a side gig, and eventually hired one person because he was like, hey, I want to do side gigs too. And then eventually had three kind of side gig people that had full-time jobs. They were all 1099s, which at the time for me seemed easier. And right now, in general, we don't recommend that because of the IRS. But the way that I did my splits, and today we're going to be talking all about, how do you pay people, is first they were in like their probationary phase, which was just a 50-50 split. And then and that was till I think they brought in like $2,000 or $3,000 in a month. So I wanted them to be serious. There were some people that, they just did 2 or 3 sessions a week. And so I got the 50-50 split. And then later on, I did that I did like a graded scale. And I wouldn't write this down because I'm going to teach you something different, but I want you to see where I've come from. The 50-50 split up to $2,000. So they'd get $1,000, I'd get $1,000. Or the business did. We still had expenses. And that was to basically cover like the cost of the office, the cost of the website. I knew that first $1,000 each person kind of gave back to the practice covered their expenses. Then I think it was the next, I want to say 1,500 was a 65-35 split. So then you'd be at about 3,500 for the month. And then above that, it was 75-25. So doing that for 13 people and figuring out the math for it and doing all of that. And sometimes people would have money where people prepaid at the end of the month when they hit their 75%. It took a lot of time. And the conversation I had so often was, is it worth it for me to stay here? And so looking at the highest performing people, when they're looking at percentages and they're saying, I'm giving Joe 25%. And, if we say, okay, that first 1,000, I lost $1,000 to Joe. The next 1,000, if we say 1,500, giving Joe 35%, that's another 525. And then, above that, say there's another 1,000, 25%. Wow, I gave Joe like $2,000 this month. I should go start my own thing. I remember there were several people that it was like every couple months we'd have this conversation. And if you think about who tends to be drawn to be a 1099 and percentage based, it tends to be people that probably are either doing a side gig. They're probably not as committed. If they're 1099, they don't have the same security. And so I want to talk today about the benefits of what we're seeing in the market in regards to having W-2s with a flat rate. And we're going to walk through exactly how we teach our consulting clients to do this. It's something that a lot of our group practice owners were a little skittish about at first. I'm going to move my T out of the way. But then when they start to run the numbers, they see that their profit margins go up, but even more so, their clinicians want to stay. They want to be a part of their practice. And so let's walk through what this looks like. So some things that you're going to need for this to apply it to yourself is you're going to need to know some of your numbers. And so if we know first what our average reimbursement rate is. Oh, before I get into actually running the numbers, why is it that people stay at a practice? So we are trying to attract the people that would have a full-time job at community mental health, at a nonprofit, that they are employee-minded people. You as a business owner probably have a hard time understanding why someone would ever want to be an employee. There are lots of reasons people want to be employees. There are lots of reasons that people want that security. They want to not have to think about things outside of their business. And for you and I, that's really hard to put our brains into that because this is just how we're wired. We maybe didn't realize it when we were in grad school, but we probably don't have that exact same bend. And so when we think about employees and say, well, why wouldn't they just go start their own practice? These folks aren't cut from that cloth. Maybe eventually they are, but we want to find the people that are going to be awesome employees with you, that aren't looking to start a practice. They're not looking at building their business skills, and that we're not making them do a lot of that. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, you aren't the big marketer for the practice unless you want to be. You don't have to go do a whole bunch of networking unless you want to be. But we start to think of them as an employee, not as someone that's co-running the practice. Because the more that we have them co-running the practice, then it's like, why would I do that for Joe in his practice if I could go do that somewhere else? So how does this work? Well, we want to start to look at first, what is your average reimbursement rate? So across your private pay to across your lowest paying insurance. Usually in your EHR, you can go back and you can look at how much you made last year, how many total sessions there were, just divide that up. So let's look at how this actually plays out. Now, imagine you are getting, say, $130 per session. So across insurances, across private pay, $130. So maybe your insurances are about $120, and then your private pay is $225, and you're using something like Thrizer to bill that. Then we want to say, okay, what's our average? So it's $130. Now, the formula that we typically want you to shoot for is this breakdown. About 40% goes to your clinicians. About 30% goes to your infrastructure, your operations, all of that. And then that remaining 30% goes to your profit margin. And so we're looking at, and we're having all of, like that's all in each of those categories. Now, there's going to be certain markets where it's really expensive, rent's really expensive, and you have an in-person practice, and maybe for you to hit that 30% is really hard. And 30% profit, that's really robust. And so we really want to have, especially as you get closer to seven figures, it to be about 15 to 25%, somewhere in that range. If you're below 15%, you're doing something wrong. We've really got to start to work together, whether that's through consulting or you're just evaluating how we can change that. So 30% operations, 40% clinicians, 30% profit. So with that said, so we take that 130, we're just going to multiply that times 0.4, which gives us our flat fee session rate of $52. Now, there are going to be people that bill higher. Like if you have a psychologist that's doing testing, if you have a psychiatrist that's doing psychiatry, if you have a nurse practitioner that's doing psychiatric med reviews, their average is obviously going to be much, much higher. And so that's where we want to make sure that we're looking at this, in regards to how that billable hours are for them. But we may want to just look at your general clinician. Most of them are probably going to be around the same amount. And then if they want to make more, we can talk about having a supervisor that does clinical supervision for usually 3 to 5 people. And then we might, above those 3 to 5 supervisors, eventually have a clinical director. And so they may get more money that way. And that's going to come out of the operational budget to help with some of that non-clinical payment. Something always comes up when you're running a private practice. Well, Gusto's payroll and HR services can make it a little easier. Gusto was designed for you, the small business owner. They take the pain out of running a business, automatically calculating paychecks, filing payroll taxes, setting up open enrollment. Gusto does it all. Want more? Time tracking, health insurance, 401k, onboarding, commuter benefits, offer letters, access to HR experts. You get the idea. With Gusto, you can focus on the joy of running your business. It's super easy to set up and get started. And if you're moving from another provider, Gusto can transfer all the data for you. It's no surprise 99% of businesses said the value they get for Gusto is worth the price. And here's the best part. Because you're a listener, you get 3 months totally free. All you have to do is go to gusto.com/Joe. Again, that's gusto.com/Joe. I'm telling you, you're going to love Gusto. Get started today. All right, so we've got $52 per session as just our 40% of what's coming in. Now, on the surface, that is so not what anyone should get paid. Yeah, we want to encourage people to be part-time or full-time. And so let's look at that next step up. So this is typically going to be anyone under 15 hours. So if they're at 5 hours, 10 hours, you're going to bring them on at that. Now, as you're hiring and as you get some growth going and some marketing going, you may be able to predict, hey, within 6 weeks, I can get this person to 15 sessions a week, to 25 sessions a week. That's where you would just want to hire someone as part-time right from the beginning or full-time salaried right from the beginning, because within just a handful of weeks, they're going to be up to capacity. So we're saying part-time. What's that look like? That's going to be 15 sessions a week average. All right, so that means some weeks, maybe in the summer, it's going to dip down to 10 to 12. And then in the winter, it may be 17, 18, 19. We want to be in that 20 hours per week total, with 15 being the average for clinical and then 5 non-clinical. So just the way we do that math is 15 sessions average times that 52. So we're going to do 15 times 52. So that's going to give us 780. And then we're going to do non-clinical time. So usually $25 to $35 an hour. So a little bit above maybe an admin type rate. But so say we did $30 an hour, and we did that times 5. So just 30 times 5, that's 150. All right, so that's 780 plus 150. So that's going to give us 930 per week, working 20 hours. Now let's talk about those 5 non-clinical hours. So those 5 non-clinical hours are not note-taking. It's not just sitting around chatting at the water cooler. We're defining those 5 hours as to what the projects are that person's interested in. Some people are really good at writing, so maybe they're going to write 2 blog posts a week in that 5 hours. Some people may be into doing video, so making videos on behalf for social media. Some people might be really good at networking. So working with that person to say, what's something you can do in your 5 hours as a project that's going to move the practice forward? And this is where we want to allow them to have things they enjoy, things that they're exploring, things that can get into markets that maybe you typically aren't in. And so if we take that 930, maybe we give them 2 weeks paid per year. So the money's not going to be coming in that week. So we're going to multiply that times 50 weeks. So that would be an annual salary of $46,500. $46,500. I mean, back in 2009, when I was a foster care supervisor, I was making, I think, $42,000. Not to say that things haven't changed significantly since then. I mean, just even the cost of houses and things like that. But to work 20 hours a week and make 46 grand a year, if we just divide that out by 26 pay periods, that's going to be $1,788 per pay period. And so that's a pretty good salary for someone that's just working 20 hours a week. So if someone has child responsibilities, has other things, we're defining kind of where that is in regards to the schedule, but also it gives people some flexibility. Now, we do want to have predictability for the practice. So we would say, okay, your hours are going to be on these days. We want to hire for what we need. So if you need more people in the evenings, if you need more people on the weekends, make sure you're hiring for that. If you're hiring for a part-time 20-hour-a-week position at 46 grand a year, we want to make sure that we say, okay, looking for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that you're filling up that calendar. They're not saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. That it's just like any job. You're saying, here's when you work. Next, we want to look at then full-time. Full-time, we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're just going to do 25 hours. So 25 hours times that 52. So that's going to bring us in at 1,300. And then we're going to give 10 hours. So we're doing a 35-hour work week, 10 hours towards those special projects. So 10 hours times 30, that's an extra $300. So that's going to bring us in at 1,600 a week. And then we're going to say, okay, based on 48 weeks a year of productivity, we're going to give 4 weeks off. So multiply that 1,600 times 48 to get our annual amount. So that would be a salary of 76,800 per year. And we're going to divide that by 26 pay periods. So that would be 2953.84. So just under $3,000 every other week, $6,000 a month. So then those 10 hours are used to push the practice forward, to help your practice grow, take on special projects. It could be things that can help with some of the operational side. Then what we have is now we have people that are secure in their jobs. They're making, just under $77,000 a year. And we may say, okay, yeah, we're going to average 25 sessions per week. Sometimes it may dip down to 22. Maybe it's going to get up closer to 30. But either way, you're not working more than 35, and we're wanting to have that average. So each month and each quarter, we're looking at where we at in those averages. Now, maybe there's someone that really only wants to do 20 clinical a week. Now, you could have a 3/4 time where you just do the same math, and you do it on 20 hours times that 52, plus maybe you give 5 to 7 non-clinical hours. So when you're doing this, you're offering something that's significantly different than other practices, where they get that security. They're not thinking about the percentages. When they have a down week, you take the hit. And for you, then okay, I have money I can put into marketing. I can, hire fully booked pros to do the pay-per-click advertising. I can have, different, accounting be done differently that is off of my plate. So then over time, what you're doing is you're building a more robust practice, and people have that security. They're less tempted to just go out and do it on their own, because more and more of the blogging, of the marketing, things like that, you're either paying them for through their non-clinical hours, or you're just putting money into it to make that automated outside of themselves. I think when people feel like they're working in their own private practice as a 1099, getting a percentage split, all those things, oftentimes what we see is they're like, I'm like 2 steps away from a private practice. Why don't I just do that and save the 30 to 40% this person's taking? So as you think through all of this, it's going to be helpful to maybe shift with your team. Now, the next question we always get is, what happens to, the people that have been here for a while that are at 75%? They're not going to like this. Well, there's some options there. We've worked with some people that they just say, as of this date, we're switching to this program. We also worked with people that said anyone hired new, moving forward, we're doing this program, and then give the option to people for that security. I would say that those folks that are doing like a 75-25 split, you just aren't making enough money to cover the operational cost. That's just not enough for all of your time that's going into it. So you're then sacrificing your time so someone else can make money. We should never have clinicians in the practice making more money than you are. You're the one that takes on all the risk of the business. You oftentimes are doing clinical work. You're often doing supervision. You're doing admin. You're doing operations. You're the one that gets called if something happens and goes wrong after hours. And so we want it to be that as the owner, as the operator, and as the head clinician, that you're the one that gets paid the best. You deserve that. You've taken all this risk on. So as we look at these numbers, I would love to know what you think. Drop me an email over joe@practiceofthepractice.com. Tag us on social media. When this goes live on social media, bring it up. Put some comments in there. Is this something that you might want to implement? We have lots of things that can help you implement these things. We have 5 consultants that help at every phase of practice. You can apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Also, we have our membership community, the Practice Academy. The Practice Academy is the premier membership for therapists that are in private practice. We have 3 different tracks. We have sustainable solo practice, we have group practice launch, and sustainable group practice. And we now have a secret community we're building within there for 7-figure practices as well. So we're not adding an extra track that's going to be in sustainable group practice, but there's a private area that we're developing over the next couple months that's going to be just for our 7-figure practice owners. And all the people that are coming to the Dominican Republic for our 7-figure practice retreat are going to get free access to the Practice Academy for free for a year. So we're going to have a bunch of 7-figure practice discussions in there too, if you're at that level. So that's only $195 a month. You can go over to practiceofthepractice.com/membership to read more about that as well. We've got so much coming up over Black Friday to Cyber Monday. We've got some deals that you're going to get emails about. Make sure you're on that email list to get all the deals and all those things that we teach you through it. We love doing this sort of stuff. We also couldn't do this without our sponsor, and our sponsor today is Gusto. Gusto's who we use through Practice of the Practice for my payroll, to take out all the taxes and all those different things, to have it go automated. I never have to worry about payroll being all wonky. They also do all sorts of things that we don't even use. So working on, the payroll, benefits, HR, the millions of hats that we often wear, you don't have to. There's no hidden fees. There's no surprises. You can actually get 3 free months if you just head on over to gusto.com/Joe. Again, that's Gusto, GUSTO.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.